bonjour, et merci. Je suis désolé, je n'ai pas en français. Sorry. So, you have heard who I am. I had a trade association of 1,100, 1,200 different companies in the United States in the tech industry, and we own and produce CES. It's a very big event, almost 150,000 people, not open to the public, over 4,000 different companies with stands, and over 55,000 people from outside the United States come to Las Vegas every January. And we just had it a few weeks ago, and it was very successful. Many of you I've spoken to were there. We have a special focus on startups, over 1,000 startups in Eureka Park, and a very strong delegation from this region. A special area, thank you very much. France is very well represented. It started under President Macron when he was an economic minister, and he brought several hundred French companies to Las Vegas, and those companies met other companies, and now we have some very big French companies. France has done very well with unicorns and very well with companies that we're seeing very quickly grow, that had started many of them at CES. So what I've been asked to talk about is stronger together, digital sovereignty in a connected world. And that is something which is, I don't want to be controversial, but I want to be honest and share with you my views on that. And right now, coming from the United States, it's challenging, I will say. But this brings me back to the very first business trip of my life outside the United States was to Paris. And that was in 1991. Now you're figuring out how old I am. I know I look like I'm 20, but I'm really not. So I was asked to speak about high-definition television. And at the time, there was a difference between the United States and Europe. In the United States, we agreed in government and industry there was one goal, and that is the best system in the world for consumers. And in Europe, took a different task. They weren't sure, the decision makers, that consumers wanted the best you can get in video. So they, as bureaucrats, decided there would be two steps. First, you go to a system that's digital, TV sets would look the same, and then maybe you'll go to high-definition television with all the definitions. One of the definitions that we used was a wider screen to replicate movies. So my speech that time in 1991 was, you are making a mistake, France, because consumers want the best. And I don't want to come here and say I told you so, because none of you were part of that decision that I remember. But what happened is the French consumers on their own decided. They decided what they wanted. And what they wanted was a widescreen television. And they were getting that from satellites. And all of a sudden, the broadcasters who pushed the intermediate decision, they realized they made a mistake, and they had to change what they were doing just to be able to compete still with the satellite providers. And now what we have in the United States and Europe and the rest of the world is a very robust, high-definition TV system that gives amazing video, and consumers around the world have won because of that, because TV is better, and also, frankly, TV is cheaper because there's more of a global standard in production. And that's very important. And it's important to me because of this time in history. Because what we're learning and hearing about is digital sovereignty. And digital sovereignty, I just asked someone who's part of a very successful French company, would we have been focusing a lot of this conference on digital sovereignty a year ago, before President Trump was in office, a little over a year ago? Would we be doing that? And he said, no, we would not be. So digital sovereignty is important to many because of one person, a very unusual US president. And of course, I'm an American citizen, I believe in the United States, but I also believe deeply that the United States and Europe are bound together forever. And that's very important to me. So I'm not going to apologize for President Trump. I will say this last year for me has seemed like 4 years. It's been very difficult being a US citizen, focusing on technology. And in some ways, as in artificial intelligence, President Trump has done some wonderful things. But with tariffs, and especially with our allies, it has not been a beautiful experience. Because I think it's not governments that should choose winners and losers. It's consumers, and consumers do best when there's competition. Now, I was introduced as being part of CES, this wonderful global event, the biggest in the world for technology. Our whole mission as an organization is to inspire innovation and to encourage innovation, to see what you see on this floor here of stands with entrepreneurs, big companies, small companies, because innovation is making the world better for everyone in the world. But innovation is best when companies can freely do business with each other, because there is not one company or one country in the world that has everything going for it in terms of innovation. Everyone has strengths and they have weaknesses. I see the strengths right here in this very, very special area of Grenoble. And it's very, to me, Grenoble is almost the Silicon Valley of Europe, or at least of France, because we see here in the microelectronics area, we see it with chips, with new announcements. Just last week, an announcement of €1 billion investment. We see a phenomenal amount of expertise and innovation. We see it in healthcare. I saw it this morning at CEA, where they have a healthcare component, which is doing amazing work in helping people that are disabled walk and move and mobility. And we're seeing so much. This is the center of the world in some areas, and it's growing quickly, and it's growing better, thanks to great leaders that are sitting right here in front of me that did not pay me a penny to say that. So, but why? Why is it? But the reason that the technology is going, and CES is growing fast as well, is because no company can do it alone. As I just said, every company and every industry must work with other industries together. They must collaborate, they must form joint ventures, they must work together. And to the extent that government puts a barrier up, that's a real problem. Our government in the United States has put on tariffs. We disagree. I disagree publicly. Not the most comfortable position for an American leader to take right now, but I do it. And that's why I enjoy coming to France so much in Europe, is because you make me feel more at home. Thank you. But I also do it because we believe in it. In all my career, I've taken the position that free trade is very important, not only because when countries trade together, they're less likely to fight, but also for the advancement of innovation and improving the human condition in healthcare, in transportation, in infrastructure, in mobility, in everything. And what we saw at CES is we saw robotics, we saw healthcare developments, we saw incredible different things in transportation, and obviously artificial intelligence was the theme of the show in many different ways in implementation. Quantum electronics was focused about, but we're also focusing on the same problems that others are. We're talking about electricity, which we used to take for granted, and France is leading the world in nuclear, highest percentage of any country. But what we're doing is we're realizing with all these cloud server farms, without all these hyperscalers, without everything going on, there's a lack of electricity. And then as we move to quantum, it's going to get worse. As AI does more and more, there'll be greater demands for electricity. As electric cars grow in demand and supply, more demand for electricity, and we don't have the supply. So one of the things we focus on at CES now, and we have for a couple of years, is electricity efficiency, being green, but also basically creation of electricity. We even had a Korean company that showed a small-scale little nuclear power product that they were offering to the world. So of the 4,000 plus exhibitors at our show, we saw a lot of different things, and it's a great cause for optimism. If you're here at this event, you're certainly invited to go to CES, and we would welcome you if you have a connection with the tech industry. Now, the last thing I want to, in the limited time I have, is I want to talk about why I believe and what we believe in is very important. So we are focused on innovation. That's our mission. We want the world better through innovation, because it will get better. But basically, we want innovation in every country. So we score countries on how innovation friendly they are. And for developed countries, because the information on non-developed countries really isn't there, and they're focused on survival more than innovation. But France, we have ranked, and most recently, and France is in our highest level of innovation. And we base that on workforce, research and development investment, broadband deployment, digital health, environmental issues, being green, and openness to artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles. And France has scored extremely high. So this is it's a great country to be real about. But the reason if there's one message though that other than innovation is great and CES is wonderful, I'd like you to leave with, is that I understand why sovereignty is important, and I apologize, je suis désolé for my pronunciation, but it is also, keep in mind that if there was a very compelling speech at the World Economic Forum recently by the Premier of Canada, who spoke, Premier Kearney, and what he said basically was that we should form a separate bloc of middle countries to fight the big blocs and to compete with them. I found that speech very eloquent, very important, and probably go down in history. However, I would argue that what we have in common as allies that survive any president, any leadership, is that we share certain human values of respect for the individual, of privacy, of liberty, of democracy, of believement in the human good and the fact there should not be tyranny. And the United States, which is based on French values and as memorialized by the Statue of Liberty, has a close relationship with France and Europe, which is so important. And what we're up against, and the battleground is technology, is we are up against forces which are doing great in developing technology in China, and they're devoting everything focusing on artificial intelligence, robotics, biologics, health technology, all these things. But they're doing it in a way that's easier for them that we cannot do. We cannot invade our citizens' privacy. We cannot forget their rights for liberty and democracy. We cannot forget that the free market system is what our strength is, our education, our creativity, our shared values between Europe and the United States and Canada and Australia and New Zealand and Japan and South Korea. We are a group of allies that share values. And I don't want to lose that in the heat of a moment of one unique individual who is speaking sometimes without appreciation, but more for negotiation with our allies. And I could say I speak on behalf of much of the United States business community when I share this with you. So please, my message is to you, stay our friends, keep innovating, recognize that the Americans love the Europeans, we love France, we want innovation, and we want to succeed for our children and our grandchildren and their children so they have rights in this world, because that's what we are fighting for the next decades, and we have to do it together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.